A federal memo about the just transition is a fresh source of tension on this already difficult issue. The 81-page document is predicting significant labor market disruptions, particularly in energy, as Canada transitions to cleaner options. Leaders in Alberta point to the document as evidence of the policy's destructive intent. Randy Boissonnault is the Associate Minister of Finance. He is in Edmonton. Thank you very much for speaking with us today, Mr. Boissonnault. I want to start with some politicians and workers, particularly in Alberta. They're extremely distressed by this document. What do you say to them?
Well, Katie, it's nice to see you hosting the show. And let me say this to Alberta workers and to Canadians across the country. The Sustainable Jobs Program is all about creating and adding high quality, long-term sustainable jobs to the economy. It's about making sure that we have long-term, high-paying, sustainable jobs in the oil and gas sector for decades into the future, way past our 2050 net zero targets, and making sure that we embrace new technologies like hydrogen, LNG, wind, solar, and making sure that when we embrace nuclear technology as well, that we've got the best and brightest workers able to do what they do best, which is build up Alberta and build up Canada. And I think where we need to focus, and certainly our government's focus, and I mean by that Minister Wilkinson, Minister O'Regan, and all of our colleagues are focused on working with workers, with industry, with labor to position us for a great future. And there's nothing about removing or subtracting. This is about adding jobs, Katie.
I get what you're saying there, but that is not how this is being interpreted, how this specific memo is being interpreted in Alberta. Can you understand why this document, I'm talking specifically about this document that has been the source of so much conversation in Alberta for about 24 hours now. Can you understand why this document might be causing the distress it's causing?
Sure, and let's talk about the document. The document is one page out of, like you said, an 81-page document that was some talking points for the minister for a committee appearance. He never used those talking points. And more to wit, I think what we need to focus on is the fact that the sustainable jobs framework and legislation that will be coming to the House later in this session is going to be explained at that point, and it's all about adding to the jobs that we have in the sector. I'll give you an example, Katie. We had Air Products announce $1.6 billion investment here in Edmonton, in Northeast Edmonton, to create the world's largest net zero hydrogen plant right here in Alberta, in Edmonton. Our government put about $300 million into that project. The Alberta government put about $161 million into that project. Thousands of high quality long-term jobs are going to come out of that project. Today, Minister Vandal and I announced $10 million for hydrogen investments that are going to positively support 1,600 jobs, so that the $50 billion that we think we can capture out of the $11 trillion global market for hydrogen by 2050 happens right here in Alberta, right here in Canada. And so I think that the province is stuck on old terminology. I don't use the just transition language. For us, it's about sustainable jobs, and it's about
you say it's about hold on. I'm gonna pause you right there. You say it's about sustainable jobs and it's about job creation. Yep. But this document, which talking points for the minister, would reflect the position of the government. So when the document itself says significant labor market disruptions, what does that mean? And what should people who work in those sectors think about that?
Well, I think that the document has been taken out of context, and the whole point of the Sustainable Jobs Framework is to make sure that that kind of a future doesn't happen. I was at Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation meetings earlier in December and actually in November, Katie, and finance ministers across the world were talking about sustainable finance and greening the electricity grid and greening the economy. And when finance ministers are talking about how we have a green electricity grid, this is exactly what we want to talk about and what we want to do in the Sustainable Jobs Framework. And I think we have to judge the work of the federal government by what we've put on the table. Billions of dollars in the last budget for carbon capture, use, and storage. And I invite the Alberta government to be clear about what they're going to do in carbon capture, use, and storage. We are ready to stand up regional tables here right in Alberta to work with the government, with industry, with labor and workers to talk about the evolution of energy. And we have silence from the Alberta government on that issue. So we're focused and we want to get building. We want to get positioning for the future, because we know that the world is getting greener. We know that we have to get to a net zero future. And Katie, we're not going to do that without the oil and gas sector. Without the oil and gas sector and our great partnership with Pathways, there's no path to net zero. And the smartest innovators that we have in our country are in that sector, and we need those workers to help us get to that net zero future. And sustainable jobs is about the pathway to that future.
Why do you say the criticism about this document is being taken out of context?
Because it's a document that was never used by the minister. I think if it was a positioning document, it's to say that, look, if the government doesn't do things, there's going to be great disruption. And as Alberta minister, I can tell you, we're not shutting down the sector. We're not going to shut down hundreds of thousands of jobs. I mean, if you take a look at the entire labor force of Alberta, it's only about 2.4 million people. So we are talking about doing the right moves now to make sure that we position Alberta and Alberta workers to have long-term, sustainable, high-paying jobs in hydrogen, in all of the elements of the energy sector. And I can tell you, look, I lived through the expansion of the oil and gas sector through the oil sands. And I can tell you that we're now at another major transformation of the economy, and we can do this together. We've done this before. Alberta Ingenuity knows how to reinvent itself, and we have capital that wants to come from the world to develop the resources we have here. And I'm confident, very confident in what Alberta workers can do. And our partnership with industry, with labor, and hopefully with the provincial government will mean that we will have long-term sustainable jobs for the future. And we are going to power the world. We're going to feed the world. And I think, Katie, we also have to put this into the geopolitical context of the fact that the world changed February 24th. And Russia's illegal invasion into Ukraine changed the context of where we are as a country, and the world needs us to invest more in energy to power the world. And sustainable jobs is about positioning us to do so while we maintain our commitments to climate change and to greening the planet. We can do both.
There's one.
We can do it well.
Before I ask you my next question,
Sure.
my last question here,
Sure.
I do want to note in that document it lists the overall number of jobs in the sector, and I don't think anyone reading that document in good faith would say that those are the numbers. You're just going to actually slash. That was an assessment of how many people work in those jobs in different sectors. But it does say that there will be significant labor market disruptions, particularly in Alberta, particularly in Newfoundland. Is that what the province should expect? Those provinces?
I think the faster we can get to the table together, the better we're going to be able to meet the challenges that we're facing. And I am going to always place a bet on the ingenuity of Alberta workers, Alberta industry. Katie, if Pathways didn't like what the government of Canada wasn't doing, we wouldn't have a partnership with them on the way to net zero. We are going to continue to work with Alberta industry. We have been through economic transformations before in this province and in this country. We know how to handle this. We know how to do this. Albertans are tough. We're resilient. We know how to get things done. And the federal government is going to be a partner every step of the way. And I can say that to you as Minister for Alberta.
Two really quick things here. One, can you tell me when we're going to see the legislation? We know it's coming this year. When are we going to see it?
We can't say for sure. I can't tell you exactly the date that this is going to hit Parliament, but I can say that it's coming and that we are going to work steadfastly with Alberta industry and workers on that. And I'm heading to Cabinet Retreat in Hamilton next week, and then we're going to National Caucus. So as soon as I know when it's going to hit the Parliament, we'll be able to let you know, Katie.
Okay, those are my questions today. Thank you very much, Associate Minister of Finance, Randy Boissonnault.
Thank you.